Thanksgiving should be a safe and happy holiday. It's a time where most friends and family can get together. It's also a holiday where most crimes involving alcohol take place.
Sergeant Be Safe is absolutely right. I'm just gonna stay here and get big.
Hello, Mario. What's going on? Captain Chaos and I will be right there.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I need another one, Mario.
Oh my goodness.
Welp, I'm out of here.
Sergeant Sefa, I need your head now. This is the worst holiday ever.
Come on, Rob, you blind. We'll take my car.
You're swerving all over the roadway, fool. Look out!
Ooh.
Run, you fool!
I'm so dizzy. I can't run straight.
I was working out today. I'm up for a good chase.
You guys won't get away. Stop before things get worse.
You can't catch me. Ugh.
Gotcha. Put him up.
Disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, and DUI. You guys just ruined your holiday. While you're sitting in jail, you guys can figure out how you're going to pay for the damages. Remember, folks, you can always get a designated driver, ride sharing, public transportation, or even carpool, so you can have a safe holiday. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
Let's go start the show.
And there, the camera's in focus. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Black and Blue, where we go live at 7 p.m. weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time weekly. And when we go live with a special guest who's either a first responder or in law enforcement, whether they're rookie, season, or retiree. And when we go live, we talk about their training experiences and publications, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We got another barn burner. I told you November was going to be off the hook. A little bit of off the chain. We're having fun. We got a whole great lineup for this month. We continue to keep building from the week before. Not that the week before wasn't any fun, but we're continuing to stack the deck higher. I got a special guest here. I'll introduce him in a minute, but right now I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker, Coach Clee Tillman, a.k.a. Clark Kent. I got so many different aliases. Sometimes I don't even know who I am myself. I'm here. I'm your host, and we got a dynamic show. We are streaming on 5 different platforms, ladies and gentlemen. 5. We are on 2 on YouTube, 2 on Facebook, and 1 on LinkedIn. So therefore, I say that I can't see who's on here. All right. So therefore, since we're on 5 different platforms and this is a live interactive interview, if you want your name, if you want the shout out, you got to put your name and where you're from in the comment section, and you'll get that shout out that you're looking for. I see Greg Foster's on here. Thank you for tuning in. Let me go ahead and get that comment up there. Thank you, Greg, for tuning in. Please tag, like, and share. Also, like I said, it's going to be live and interactive. So if you have a question or a comment, you got to put that in the comment section as well, and we'll make sure we'll address it as soon as possible. Understand there's about a 5 to 10 second delay. So we might I might see your comment, but we might be on to another topic, but we will address it as soon as we can. All right. This platform is sponsored by One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing, you see a couple books behind me. I wrote those 5, and they also have other sponsors. They sponsor Sergeant Be Safe. You saw the cartoon at the beginning of this, and they sponsor this platform here. One Way Publishing, their book publishing company, their motto is they can turn a thought into a book that's bought. So therefore, if you ever wanted to write your own nonfiction, fiction, fantasy, cookbook, children's book, anything, they can get it done for you. The website scrolling below, workwithclee.com. If you're looking to be a guest on this show, that's the website scrolling below there as well. If you're looking to be a voiceover for Sergeant Be Safe, that's the website as well. Got a couple of Shayla's on here. Thank you for tuning in, saying good evening. We got Seti P on here as well. Good evening, sir. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys tag, like, and share. And you know what? We're burning up Arizona right now because we got another special guest, a retiree. I'm going to jump right into it because this intro is going to be dynamic. This intro is going to be very fact-filled. And then we're going to jump right into the interview because that's why you guys are here. You guys can listen to me talk all hour long, but that's not what's going to happen. We're going to have a dynamic interview. We have a retired law enforcement officer from Vegas, from the police department in Las Vegas, Nevada. He worked patrol, K-9 units, narcotics, SWAT. He's also worked as a street crime detective. He's investigated officers for officer-involved shootings, use of force, and critical incident. He's one of 2 officers that had done evaluations for over 250 plus use of force cases for policy and compliance litigations. He's also an instructor for use of force, an instructor for development, excited delirium, less lethal, taser, firearms. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I can go on, and I had to write it down. You know I had to write it down because there was no way I was going to remember all that. I'm going to bring Daniel King to the platform right now. Danny, are you there? Can you hear me? Uh-oh, he's frozen. See what we can do here. Got a little bit of technical difficulty going on here. Had to log off to get back on. Once he gets back on, we'll bring him back to the stage here. I see Darren Cotton's in here. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys tag, like, and share. Thank you, Darren. Hey, like I said, and we may not have a special guest next weekend. Well, I'll use this opportunity this time to supply this information. We're probably going to have another barn burner with a highlight show, past guests that have been on the platform, talk about highlights of what they've done, their trainings, experiences, and publications. Most of them have wrote books. Others of them have given trainings. I've been to a couple of their trainings before, so we'll make sure that we get those guys on here as well. All right, see what's going on here. Still got it standing by. So in the process, we'll give him time to log on, see if I can get a One Way Publishing commercial up here. Let's see what we got going on right here. Oh, auto correct. Let me put this to sleep. There we go. Stand by here. We're going to get something up here for you guys. Check out One Way Publishing real quick. All right.
Welcome to One Way Publishing. I'm Sergeant Be Safe, and over there you see Captain Chaos with the K9 Kraken. One Way Publishing has great deals, so we're over here typing up our own books. Everyone has a story to tell, and who better to write the story of your life than you? Even if it's a fiction make-believe book, it can still get done. Here at One Way Publishing, they pride themselves on turning a mere thought into a book that's bought. So Kraken, what do you think about that? Just imagine going to the bookstore and seeing the book that you wrote on the shelves. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way. Make sure you check out the website workwithlee.com.
All right, I think we're back. I think we got rid of the technical difficulties. You guys saw that long intro. I hope you guys understand who we have right here. I'm gonna bring him to the stage. No, the none other, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We got Danny King right here. Danny, are you here?
Listen, man, I was hyped up. You had me sweaty talking about all that stuff, and then as soon as you turned me on, it was just spinning.
Hey, what did I say before backstage? What can go wrong will go wrong, so it doesn't surprise me at all. I'm glad you're here now. Hey, yeah, I can't even see it. Is it the humid out there in Arizona? Is that what it is?
I'm in Vegas. It's dry. It's dry, and it's
I said Arizona. Yeah,
I'm on the side of a mountain. It's okay. It's to me. There's Nevada, Texas, and then everywhere else in the United States. I get it.
Yeah. Hey, it's a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you very much for making yourself available to come on this platform. I'm excited to have you on here and to jump into the conversation. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, man. Born and raised in Las Vegas, and in the 90s, joined the Army after I graduated from high school.
Army leads the way, who?
Yep, and was stationed in Central America. And Central America, if you know anything about it, in the 90s, they make documentaries about it. It was a cool place to work. And did that for a few years as a flight medic, right? So I was a medic in the Army. And then it just so happened, by the grace of God, I ended up flying on Blackhawks.
Oh, wow.
Really was a premium job that I really didn't deserve, but they needed a man. And I passed all the tests and spent a couple years hopping throughout Central and South America doing medevac stuff. And at the age of 18, I learned, listen, you have to know your stuff, right? You wear the uniform.
Yeah.
You call yourself a medic. Later on, you call yourself a cop. You have to know these things. So spent a couple years in Central America, then came back to the United States at Fort Carson, Colorado Springs. Did a couple years there, got out. And I actually got out to get into executive protection coming back to Las Vegas.
Okay.
And just ran into a bunch of cops in a city called Henderson. Decided to test. Hey, man, I'm okay. I never wanted to be a police officer. I grew up in the hood. It's just not something that most people aspire to be. But when you are in the middle of the drug war, when you are part of an air crew flying on Blackhawks, I learned that I can handle high stress incidents. Listen, we're going to die in a minute, and I'm good with it, right? Not that I'm good with dying, but I can handle that stress. I can perform.
Right.
And so when it came down to law enforcement, it just seemed to be a square peg in a square hole. And I thought, yeah, listen, I can do this. And that's like my one gift. I'm not an exceptionally intelligent person or moderately intelligent person, but I can handle the stress and I can put two and two together. And so got into law enforcement, worked patrol like most people do. Got into canine, handled the patrol dog, later on a narcotics dog as well. Two different dogs. When you're a SWAT officer in Henderson, when you're a patrol officer, you're also a SWAT officer.
Okay.
Did that for 6 years, had my fun, thought, hey man, I'm going to give someone else a chance to do this. Went to back to the road, did what's called PSU, problem solving, like street crimes. Did that for a while. In 2011, I was involved in an OIS, which was really eye opening. I was at the peak of my game training wise, and then after that, they were creating a position in training where they evaluated use of force and officer involved shootings and things like that. So tested for it. It was all people that I'd worked for in my special enforcement time, all the SWAT guys and things like that. Went over there, did that, started teaching and learning about use of force, officer safety, started investigating it on the administrative side, and then did that up until I returned back to the road in 2018 and ultimately retired in 2022.
Gotcha. Thank you for that rundown. It's a very eye-opening and understandable and relatable for those that have lived the life in the military, maybe not to that extreme, or those of us that have not. Those of us that I love asking what got individuals in the law enforcement, because the answers are so different. Some know they had the burning desire at age 4. Some got the bug out of high school or in the military. Others just happen to walk by a recruiting station. There's so many different reasons, but then you find your niche and you find your purpose when you actually go for the job, and then you become talented at it, and then you find out, like I said, your talents, and you become good at it, and you get all the way to retirement. Another question on the show is life after retirement, and you're showing that now, that there's always life after retirement from doing this job. But you've been involved in some high risk situations. And you represent officers. I think your tagline, and quote, correct me if I'm wrong, is you defend cops who have on use of force incidents or controversies or things along those lines.
Sure. So I teach cops how to avoid it, right? So it's not necessarily just that I defend cops. I teach cops to defend a reasonable use of force, because I mean, let's be honest, we've seen cops not use reasonable force. But there's a question as to what a citizen may think is reasonable versus what my training and experience thinks is reasonable. Right. I was just teaching a class a little while ago over in North Las Vegas, and we were talking about excited delirium. They've done a lot of studies on what's called prone restraint, and the science says that prone restraint, putting your knee on someone's back, doesn't kill them. But that's what the science says. Danny King would tell you, this is what the science says, but don't keep your knee in their back, right? It's just one of those things that it's just problematic, and oftentimes or sometimes it's not necessary. So it's not necessary. Roll them over and set them up, because we're in a post-fact world where the facts necessarily don't matter, right? So it's not, like I said, I teach guys how to avoid allegations of excessive force, unreasonable force, just things that they can do to avoid the appearance of it, as well as how to explain their actions.
Gotcha. And like you said, we've seen lately, prior to 2020 and after, and so far in the mix as well, maybe excessive use of force and what's not reasonable. You see officers actually going a little tippy-toe into situations where they should be a little bit more aggressive, and we've seen officers be a little bit more aggressive where the court of public opinion says we should back off a little bit. Can you give us some examples or give us a little balance on what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, at least for use of force?
Sure. So think of force or the response to use of force as a spectrum, right? Okay. You're going to have on one end, like you talked about, you're going to have officers that don't use force no matter what. Right. And that's it. Sometimes people applaud those things. There was a officer a couple years ago in Ohio where a guy was chasing him, had his hand concealed, knew that he had killed someone, knew that he had rammed a state trooper, and the officer wouldn't use force no matter what, and he was applauded for that. That's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, it is.
And then on the other hand, you see things like Memphis. In Memphis, those officers, it almost appeared to be gratuitous, right? And it almost appeared that these guys had lost sight of the fact that they're not trying to get this guy in custody. It's just that they're getting licks in. If you truly watch that video with Tyree Nichols, Tyree Nichols is resisting. He's not doing what they ask him to do, but that almost doesn't matter because we're trained and we're expected to handle resistant individuals.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, there was also a story that recently happened in Connecticut.
Okay.
Right. So we have the spectrum of people who won't use force, and then
Mhm.
people who use too much force, or they just don't get the person in custody. They just continue to use force.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
But there was an incident in Connecticut in which the officer just had a really bad attitude. He was constantly cursing, constantly saying the F word.
Mhm.
And the force that was occurring, if you turn off the audio, appears to be reasonable. But when you listen to the audio,
Yeah.
it changes the way you perceive things. And that's actually backed by science, right? So
Hmm.
one of the things that I would tell you is if you're ever evaluating a use of force,
Mhm.
turn the audio off and just watch it. Watch just the suspect, watch just the officer, and you'll see certain things. But on this particular use of force incident, the officer's behavior was so out of control that
Mhm.
everything that you see
Mhm.
is through that filter, through the filter of an uncontrolled or out of control cop.
Right. And so, like you said, watching it with the audio turned down, or watching the suspect, or watching the officer in the performance of his duty, are you able to glean a more fair or unbiased view of what's going on, or do you think that it can still be misconstrued to be a little excessive or hands off as well, for lack of a better term?
Sure. So there's a lot of things that can sway a person's opinion. First off, we all have biases. Each and every one of us have a bias, and we have to recognize that. And a lot of times when you see something in the media, it's framed by the media, and the media says, oh, watch this person do this to this person.
Mhm.
Well, using the benefit of hindsight, they know what's going to occur, and then the person, all they have to do is watch the officer strike the person in the head, and you go, oh yeah, there it is right there. That's
Yeah.
plain and simple unreasonable force. So
Mhm.
recognizing that you have a bias is very important, because
Mhm.
you have to defeat it, and we all have them. We all have them. And then in terms of conducting an unbiased investigation, everyone
Mhm.
has their methodology, the way they do things. Um, I'll read the report. So you being a police officer,
Mhm.
and you will generally understand what's reasonable and what's not reasonable.
Right.
Generally,
Mhm.
you'll have your policies, you'll have your procedures, the way an officer is trained. So you
Mhm.
crack open the report and you simply listen to this. Now, let me back up. Can I watch a video and determine whether something is reasonable or not reasonable? I can't.
Mhm.
And no one really can. I can see
Mhm.
things in that video that are common, right? But
Yeah.
can I say that this is flat out reasonable? Absolutely not.
Mhm.
So you crack open the report and you read it. And when you read it, you're reading it according to your policy. You're reading it according to generally accepted practice in policing. Okay, does
Mhm.
this make sense? Does this not make sense? Okay, now let's watch the video.
Gotcha.
And when you're watching the video, what you'll find is if a person oftentimes is truly concerned about the things that they say they're concerned about in the report,
Mhm.
their behavior will reflect that, right?
Mhm.
If you ever see a police officer who believes that the suspect is armed, you will see that the police officer generally stops the investigation, stops the questioning, and they'll relentlessly pursue a pat down or try to determine whether that person is armed. They don't
Mhm.
just continue to sit there at the hood of the car and go, oh, where are
Right.
you heading to? Those other things. They
Mhm.
generally relentlessly kind of pursue that. So if you're telling me in your report that you're concerned about those things, I should see some of that behavior. Now,
Exactly.
it's not it's cut and dry, because you'll have someone who a police officer who is very anxious in their appearance, who may do one thing, versus a SWAT officer on the other hand, who's
Mhm.
used to operating in highly stressful circumstances, and so they
Mhm.
won't necessarily um, react the same way that the other officer would.
Right.
But for the most part, am I seeing on video what you're saying has occurred? Sometimes it'll be there. Most of the time it'll be there, but
Mhm.
sometimes. And then you just clip through the rest of the report. Is this within policy? Is this within
Mhm.
procedure?
Mhm.
As an example, in a lot of agencies, they've precluded the use of the drive stun. or the contact taser, where you take the taser, you put it against someone's skin, without deploying it. Well, that in my agency, we couldn't do that.
Okay.
So you would have a policy violation, but it's completely reasonable in the law. It's just that our agency decides that, hey, we're not going to do that for a variety of reasons. So you can have something that's a policy violation and still be completely constitutional. So in my role, what am I looking for? Am I looking for policy compliance? Am I looking for constitutional compliance? Okay, well, this is out of policy, but completely constitutional. And so you just go through, you read the report, you read witness statements, you look at the surveillance and so on and so forth. And it gives you a pretty good idea of listen, is this person resisting? Once they stopped resisting, did they get taken into custody, or were there additional strikes? Were those strikes within reason or not? And then ultimately you'll start to get a picture, and then you do that over and over and over again. And sometimes when you crack open those reports and those videos and you start looking at them, it's not reasonable. From beginning to end, it's just not reasonable.
Right. And then when you make that determination, what kind of steps do you take after making that determination, if it's unreasonable or a policy violation or constitutionally wrong?
So it depends. In my agency, it depended on where it came from. And what I mean by that is, when we were talking earlier about evaluating those 250 use of force incidents, that's 250 use of force incidents annually for years, approximately 250 to 300 use of force incidents.
Right.
So I would look at each and every one of those, read each and every report. And that was standard on every use of force that my agency had. It was my responsibility to determine whether that was within policy compliance or within the Constitution. So if I spotted something, and it rarely happened, if I spotted something that was unreasonable, it was my job to decline that as acceptable or reasonable, send it back down the chain of command, and then contact that chain of command, because then they have to begin their investigation.
Gotcha.
And I would tell you, on the other side of that, at the same time, I was also a partner of mine, Jamie Borden, and later on a partner named Sean Tebow. We were responsible for training officers. So we would see incidents that we didn't particularly care for, could be problematic, but still within reason. We would put out videos, we would roll that in service and go, man, don't do this. This, you can't get one past us. We have every drop of training under the sun. You're not going to get things past us. So don't do these things. This is what's reasonable. This is what's not reasonable. And then they knew that we would be evaluating every single one of them. So on top of having rock solid people who were good people who believed in the Constitution, they also knew on the back end that it's going to be scrutinized by guys who play no favorites, are there to stick to the rules. So we would also have internal affairs if a allegation of unreasonable force came in, because we belong to training. Our job was to make our training better. But as being subject matter experts, IA would get a hold of us and say, hey, can you take a look at this? Or not in a friendly manner, this is your case, we need you to evaluate this. And then we go through that entire methodology, look at everything, and ultimately issue a report back to internal affairs that if the officer is sustained, they're going to get a copy of it. It's not like we're just making things up. How we came to those conclusions, the evidence that we reviewed would be in that report, would hand it back, and then ultimately they would make their determination.
Gotcha. Thank you for explaining that in detail. Let me ask you this: in retrospect, have you ever been called to the stand to explain the use of force for an officer who may have been in court for whatever reason and deemed that the force was either unreasonable, excessive, and then you had to break down report by report and still by still of the video, if there was video, of why the force may have been reasonable and why the officer acted the way he did? I'm sorry, acted the way they did?
Yes, so that's actually a very common thing. I'm working on some court cases right now in state criminal court, and that's part of being a consultant. It happens inside the agency, it happens outside. Arbitrations, officers are fired. You're dealing with individuals across the country where something has occurred and they simply need to know, hey, listen, is this normal or is this not normal?
Right.
But you would be shocked at the amount of people who don't fully understand use of force. Because think of it, as a patrol guy, you have to know all kinds of search and seizure. You have to know, can you enter this house? You have to know the laws around civil infractions. You have to know speeding, DUIs, accident investigation. You have to know all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So most of the time, as a police officer, you have a tacit level of knowledge, meaning that you just don't necessarily know how you know, and or you're not adept at articulating everything under the sun.
Right.
So when you articulate it, oftentimes it's very surface level. But let me back up. I just consulted with the Department of Justice on a case, and they there was the FBI, the local district attorney, the DOJ, and they didn't pretend like they understood everything. They didn't fully understand canine use of force, and so you have to explain things to them one way or the other so they understand what they're looking at to determine, hey, do we have a case here or not? Is this reasonable or is this not reasonable? In particular, one particular case, they had a extremely high level of use of force incidents with one officer. Okay, the number of use of force incidents with this particular officer was astronomical, just really, really high. And when you see that, a vast majority of the time, that's an officer that's either too comfortable using force or using unreasonable force.
Okay.
But a very small percentage of time, it's literally a fluke. 2018, we run a report. We ran reports every year to determine whether officers are use of force numbers. And there was a guy who was the nicest guy you could imagine. And his use of force numbers were ridiculous, right? But we had read every one of and watched every one of the videos, and this guy is not out of control. This guy is not a trash talker. You would watch his videos, and he's just getting attacked. People are just randomly resisting, and so it resulted in a use of force. But not because this guy had no command presence, not because this guy was just using too much force. He led the department in use of force, probably 18 in a particular year, which was just pretty high. And every one of them was initiated by the suspect. So, you have to understand what you're looking at and then explain that to people.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're going to pause for the cause. We're going to go to a certain Be Safe commercial cartoon here, and we're going to jump right back into this interview. So stand by.
This holiday season is when DUIs and alcohol-related crimes are at their highest. But you can still have fun and be very safe this holiday season. So please, be responsible. Let's go see if treacherous Tony is going to make good decisions.
Drinksgiving. This is going to be fun. Ladies, how are you doing today? I have one too many. I don't feel so good. I got to get out of here.
So, Tony thinks he's going to leave and drive away. Little does he know I'm on patrol nearby.
Oh, man.
Tony, you can barely walk. Look, you can either catch a ride or you can catch this ride.
Hey, bro, I need a ride.
Ride sharing, carpooling, or designated driver, looks like he made the right decision. Sergeant Be Safe wants you to have a safe and happy holiday. So remember, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You got to see Sergeant Be Safe and Treacherous Tony in action right there. We want you guys to have a safe and happy holiday that's coming up this upcoming week. So therefore, you guys make sure you follow the rules and spread the word. Thanksgiving is one of the holidays where crimes of alcohol are enhanced, more hand over fist, more so than it is for Christmas, more so than it is for St. Patrick's Day, because believe it or not, it's like almost a week-long celebration and you get the weekend into it. But we're jumping right back into this interview. I got Danny King right here. We've been talking about use of force. We've been talking about monitoring the pros and cons of use of force. And I want to ask about this. Have you seen, or do you know of, at least right now, any existing incidents that should garner any kind of policy changes for departments as far as use of force? Or have you gone through any in the past that, you know, this policy is kind of outdated or archaic? We need to kind of formulate something that's more current with the times as far as use of force.
Sure. And so there are 17,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States, and somewhere, depending on the count, somewhere between 700,000 to 1 million cops.
Mm-hmm.
And the way our system works in the United States is I work in the United States, which is in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals,
mm-hmm.
in the state of Nevada,
mm-hmm.
In the county of Clark, in the city of Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those has their own rules, policies, laws, so on and so forth.
Right.
And so where you're at in Pennsylvania, what federal circuit is that? Do you know?
You're catching me off the top of my head.
Like Fifth Circuit, 10th Circuit. I have no idea. But
mm-hmm.
the rules in Pennsylvania, the federal rules are completely different. The state laws, all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has different rules. Everyone has different levels of sophistication. Everyone has different policies, so on and so forth.
Right.
And some of those policies sometimes can be very updated or not updated at all. Mm-hmm. And so when you run into an incident, an example, years ago in my agency, you could curse, right? Cursing at someone at a specific time can be very effective. So we had it in our policy and we used it. However, I would tell you now that that's one of the number one things that makes force unreasonable. So I would tell people every time I tell them, listen, man, I got a lot of training, more than 99% of the country. And if I could give you one piece of advice, it's be professional, don't curse,
mm-hmm.
right? And so some agencies still allow cursing. That cursing, again, sways people's the way people look at things.
Uh-huh.
I did an investigation years ago where an officer walked into a coffee shop off duty coming home from court. He had an in the waistband holster. He had a jacket over it previously.
Mm-hmm.
He goes inside right in the middle of a robbery. And the layoff car is outside. As he walks past, the person in the car sees the badge, sees the gun, know it's a cop, knows that their friend is inside robbing the store.
Uh-huh.
And so eventually, once the officer gets inside, he determines, oh, this is a robbery.
Right.
He draws his weapon. The in the waistband holster collapses because it's just one of those leather ones.
Mm-hmm.
And now he can't get it back in the holster. So now he has to fight this guy with a gun in his hand.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, it just so happens, just by the grace of God, the layoff car driver, a female, was so high that she went inside, put the gun to the officer's head, squeezed the trigger, but didn't actually squeeze the trigger, but thought she had killed the cop. She was just too high to work the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
But that officer would have been done. So little simple things like that, where we went back and we looked at the policy and we determined, hey, listen, you can't have these in the waistband holsters that are collapsible. And part of my unit, what we did is we combed through the incident and said, hey, what can we learn from this? Because there's sometimes you can't learn anything from it. It's just so random. There's no viable policy change that needs to happen here, or just because it happened in this one incident, changing policy would exclude or make it feasible in all these other incidents.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. De-escalation is an example. De-escalation to me and you means that we have a chance to maybe give this person some space. Maybe we have the time to talk, but you know when it's time to de-escalate and when it's time to not de-escalate, right? Or when it's, I should say, escalate. But
Right.
you know those things. Well, the state of Nevada wrote it into the law that you must de-escalate. That's a horrible idea. If you've got done robbing a bank and running from the cops and crashing the car, and I come along with my dog and find you hiding in a bush, having done all these violent felonies, do you expect me to de-escalate? And not only should I not de-escalate, I will tell you that having the dog in your face, me yelling at you or giving you clear and concise orders is the thing that's incredibly effective. Right? So we see all these laws that are put in place all across the country that simply don't make sense. No-knock warrants and Breonna Taylor as an example. Had those officers served that warrant as a no-knock warrant, they would have been on Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend before they even woke up. That story would have been completely different. Right? And that's the purpose of no-knock warrants. But because they executed it as a knock warrant, that gave the people time to get up, gather their thoughts, come to the door, or come to the hallway. And again, it's a tragedy all the way around.
Right.
But when we start putting these laws in place, it can be problematic.
Right. Absolutely. You covered a lot there. So talking about earlier, you spoke of excited delirium and de-escalation. Those are like buzzwords now here in the law enforcement community. Excited delirium, I remember getting training on that. You said science says putting a knee in someone's back may not ultimately be fatal, but of course it's not probably the best practice to do if you have other things, if you have other options available. I remember when we first started talking about excited delirium, the training that we got is once you get them cuffed as soon as possible, because you don't know if that person, their heart rate's going to be elevated for whatever reason. Maybe they're on drugs, maybe alcohol's taken over, maybe that's just not their norm, and their adrenaline kicked in for whatever reason, whatever it may be. After you get them under control, got them handcuffed, then you sit them up. So either sit them on the curb, sit them up against the vehicle or the wheel well, or even if possible, if you have enough officers there, get them up safely, get them back in the patrol car. So for one, you can expand their lungs, get oxygen back to their brain and circulating through their body. Is that still being taught? Is that what you were understood, at least for excited delirium as well? Or do you have other methods?
Sure. So you have to remember, though, that when you were trained, when I was initially trained, there's so much turnover in law enforcement. We're constantly leaking experience and we're constantly leaking training.
Yeah.
So I was teaching officers today that had anywhere from 1.5 years experience to 18 years of experience.
Gotcha.
And while they knew of it, none of them knew the tactics and techniques. There's a lot of commotion and there's a lot of issues going on around the term excited delirium. It's not recognized by a lot of medical associations, and that's fine. I don't disagree with it, because a person can go into delirium for so many reasons. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And while you and I will definitely know when someone's in delirium, we don't necessarily know if it's because of hypoglycemia, because of epilepsy, because of cocaine use, whatever the case is. And we also don't know where that person is at medically.
Right.
Do they have a lot of the comorbidities that come with individuals that die in custody, right? Do they have arteriosclerosis and myocarditis and all these issues that you often find that were present, as an example, with George Floyd? We don't know. So what we currently teach guys is if you can contain them before confronting them, then contain them. We want to get multiple officers there. We want to get the fire department there. And we're not talking about someone who's just high, right?
Yeah.
What we call a tweaker. We're not talking about that person. If that guy's clucking down the street and he's high out of his mind, but he's obeying the traffic laws, unfortunately, and where I live, there's just so many people like that. We call them citizens. All right, cool. If you don't need my help, you're obeying the traffic laws, you're not bothering people, we'll see you around. But when you start talking about people who are acting erratically, they're stripping off their clothes, they're running around, they are splashing in they're in someone's backyard, jumping in their pool, things like that. Those are the people that are in delirium. We listen for the call. All right. We stage medical. We hear a lot of the indicators of someone who's in delirium. They're smashing things. They just flipped out. They're heated, for clothes, so on and so forth. All right, cool. Clee, let's roll over there. Get some other people there. Call an ambulance to stage because the fire department's not in.
Right.
But it is a medical call, and that's the important thing that we have to understand. They may be in someone's backyard trespassing. They may be trying to get into someone's car. But once we determine that they are in delirium, we need to get them to a medical facility as soon as possible. So get your ambulance there, get your other people there. If we can contain that person before we can confront them, good. Let's come up with a plan. And very rarely is it like this. I spoke to a young officer today where as soon as he arrived, his partner arrived first. He's pulling up as his partner's getting out of the car. The guy is already charging at him, and it's a fight.
Yeah.
You have to determine, is that person a danger or a threat, or are they not? I've had 3 encounters with people that are in true delirium. Never did they try and hurt me. They resisted, but they resisted because they can't control themselves. And I was able to determine that, hey, this guy's not a threat to me. But that's different than what this officer faced. And by the way, if you're legalizing marijuana, I think you're going to see a little bit more of this in your states. You're going to see a lot more people flipping out. And so, long story short, if you can contain this person, if you can make a plan, then the faster you can get that person into custody, the better. But you have to remember, oftentimes they're not in control of themselves. Sometimes they are violent, but you need to hand them off to EMS as fast as possible, because they could be of the variety, which is the rarer, where they have the heart issues. They have the hyperthermia, which is one of the things that you almost always see in the documentation. But if it's 115 degrees out here in Vegas, you're not going to feel the heat coming off someone. I'm going to be just as hot as this guy is, but on the inside he's baking, and that's truly the issue. There's that hyperthermia that's going on that's causing him to go haywire. So yeah, just as you talked about, sit that person up. Sometimes what you find is they will be out of control. They're screaming, they're yelling. God's coming to get me. The CIA is watching me, and then they come down. Right. And when they come down, that's the time that you really have to watch them, because if you and I are fighting this guy, we're telling him, hey man, relax, calm down. Right. You're tired. I'm tired. We still have to coordinate with the ambulance to get there, whatever the case is, but we stop paying attention to this guy. Well, ultimately what's going on in his heart is he's starting to have fibrillations, and it's starting to have these arrhythmias where his heart isn't beating effectively, and slowly he's dying in front of us, but we think he's just calming down. So that's why you want to sit him up. You want to look him in the face if you can. The reality is some of these people are going to die. Let's do what we can to make it no worse for them. Right. Let's get them in custody as soon as possible. Get them into an ambulance, and but yeah, it's about the same. But everyone doesn't know that, unfortunately, in the United States.
Absolutely. Is this one of the things, I know you go around doing trainings, is this one of the some of the subject matters that you cover during your trainings?
Yep. So we'll cover excited delirium. We'll cover why some of the ways that the public views use of force. Some of the things that's important to keep in mind. Human factors, as we call it, or human performance under stress. How the eyes work, how you can sometimes mistake a phone for a gun. Ultimately, we go over how to articulate your use of force. What would we consider a use of force? Or excuse me, an unreasonable use of force. We cover how cops are charged, the process of charging a police officer, some of the failings that happen within that, and just ultimately the purpose of the class. It's a class I teach called Defending Reasonable Force. ultimately the purpose is to avoid all this if possible. We have to do police work, but there's things that we can do that can undercut us. And there's things that we can do that will be problematic and needless. They don't add to anything. They don't help us out in a use of force incident. You know, I'm 250 pounds and I'm 5'9". If I chase after you and climb fences and wrestle you to the ground, you can figure out that I'm pretty serious about this already. I don't need to act like an out of control cop and curse at you for you to get that. Oh, this cop is kind of serious, right?
Good point,
the fact that I'm there, it's kind of evident. So why would we do those things, right? Why would we continue to strike and punch people after they've surrendered? Or I mean, there's just a ton of things, and I go one by one and talk about them.
Gotcha. So if someone wanted to get in contact with you or actually attend one of your trainings, how would they go about doing that?
So I teach a handful of classes. I teach excited delirium, body cameras, the things you need to know about body cameras. You can reach me at AmericanPatrolman.com. That's AmericanPatrolman.com. My email address is dk@AmericanPatrolman. Those are the best ways of getting a hold of me. Or Clee's got my number. You can just reach out to him.
I'll pass that information on. There we go. That's plain and simple right there, huh? So, and you mentioned body cams, and I remember I came on. I remember the old guy, or the quote unquote seasoned guy at the time when I came on. I went to the academy in 2004. So I remember having the watch guard and having to attach the microphone for traffic stops. Yep. And the seasoned guy used to be so pissed off about having a traffic stop recorded and having to remember to put the microphone on, because he would take it off and keep it docked. And then you'd see him walk to the car. Then he had a come to Jesus moment, we'll just say, walk back to the patrol car, assuming he's grabbing the mic, put it on his lapel, and then reapproach the car again, and then talk about how much he hated it, talk about how much this was unnecessary, how much this is going to change the game for him, and how much it's time for him to get out of this profession. And I remember hearing that. I was like, this is great. For me, at least, because I'm one who's not used to articulating myself in court. So if someone wants to take a hearing on a traffic stop, I may not be able to articulate myself very well, or to the judge. I could show them a video, and I can say, well, this is what happened. This is why I did the X, Y, and the approach. So now it's transformed into body cams now, where we're the only occupation that basically we're recorded 24/7 a day on the actions that we do, the comments that we say, and things like that. What kind of suggestions would you give? Briefly, I know you give a training on it, but briefly about the goods and possibly the not so goods about body cameras.
Sure. So one of the things that any agency that's going to body cameras is that right off the bat, you understand whether that officer knows their job or doesn't know that job. And so you're recorded when you're encountering someone. And if you're misquoting policy, you're misquoting the law, you're becoming angry at people, it's all apparent, right? And not only is it apparent, but oftentimes it's apparent to people that have absolutely no idea about policing, right? They don't know your job. They don't know the policies. They don't know half of those things. And there you are telling them something that is clearly not factual, not the policy of the police department, or, whatever the case is. It also changes the distance between people, right? It's a completely different reality than you and I live in on the streets in that moment. And so when I have your body camera, and I went through this today with the officers in the excited delirium class, where we are watching a person die in front of us. And the officers are on body camera talking about transporting this person or doing whatever the case is. Well, they have a different fixation. They believe that this person's calming down, but the jury is now going to see, and it's going to be framed that way, that these officers are indifferent, don't care, aren't trained, whatever the case is. They don't care that this person's dying. And so while you and I may be talking about what our next steps are, the person on the body camera has the ability, watching the body camera has the ability to watch the citizens slowly die. So they're focusing on what they want to focus on in that moment. They're seeing what they want to see in that moment. So it works for us, but it can also work against us. And we just have to be aware of these things.
Right.
You know, you get a call to my house and I'm standing at the top of my driveway and I've got a bat in my hand and you're at the bottom of my driveway. Well, on body camera, it looks like I'm 50 feet away. But the reality is that I'm only 30 feet away. But the person that's viewing it doesn't know that. And sometimes cops don't know that. Administrators don't know that. So they're going, hey, listen, you had 50 feet or you had this amount of space. Why didn't you do all these other things when in fact you only had 30 feet? And we know that that can be chewed up in a second with the person that's aggressing you. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Another topic that we talk about here is, and maybe you can touch on this. I know it's kind of a little off topic, at least as far as use of force or excited delirium or any of your trainings, but we're seeing nationwide retention problem and recruitment problem for agencies, not only just with law enforcement and first responders, but we're seeing it with all kind of occupations. And then when we talk about these things, as far as body cams, as use of force, being not in such a good light with the media, so many different things that seem like they're against us and not for us. What would you say to a young man or female or woman getting ready to graduate high school, get out of the military, graduate college, and they're thinking about a career in law enforcement, but they're kind of standoffish a little bit? What would be your advice to them?
Sure. So, and that's actually a great question. In the city that I worked in, I had to call ahead for my food so I could get in and get out. Because if I didn't call ahead, the citizens would fight to pay for my food. I cannot walk across a parking lot without someone stopping me to thank me. The vast majority of the traffic stops, people are compliant. So what you hear in the media, and let's be honest with ourselves. If I wanted to hear about nothing but bad news, I can structure my world that I only hear about bad news.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you are hearing a lot of anti-law enforcement stuff, there's a chance that you've structured your intake via social media or the news channels that you watch so that that's the case. Law enforcement is a calling. Whether you think that there's institutional racism or bias, think about this. Tomorrow, someone's going to molest a little girl. Wow. And we need a police officer who's capable of putting the pieces together, who's capable of sitting across the table and talking with that suspect or talking with that victim. There's going to be a person that's going to be drunk and crash into someone. And we need officers that can do DUIs. We need guys that can do SWAT stuff, sexual assault, you name it. We need all those things. And if you think that law enforcement is full of negativity and society hates us, that's absolutely not the case, right? But I would also tell you that a lot of people don't see themselves as police officers, but they could do the job, right? I didn't see myself as a police officer, and it's something that I excelled in. It's something that was absolutely my niche, and I loved doing it. So if you think it's for you, dig a little deeper, do a ride along, ask questions. Are there issues? There's issues in every profession, right? But I would definitely say that law enforcement needs good people. Whether you're an activist and you believe that the system is against our fellow black man, hey man, join up, and hit the streets. And if you think that's a problem, you're in a perfect place to solve that problem. It's a great job, and we need good people who can handle stress and who could think through problems. So do it.
And the other side of that coin, what would you say to the seasoned officer that has not clean so good in the media. It's gone through COVID. This job is very cyclic. We're on top often. Most times we're in the middle, where most people are happy to see us if they do see us, like you mentioned, or they don't need us until they need us, and then they appreciate that we're there. Other times we're just seem like we're coming out of the very bottom of it, where it seems like we're being ridiculed for every little thing. And then you got your seasoned officers that have seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and they've done the quiet quitting or whatever all the latest terms are now. What would you say to that seasoned officer that still has a little bit more to offer to the community?
Well, it's important that as a seasoned officer, you are the person that's seen the best and the worst. When I came back, I worked with a very young squad, and the average officer had a year and a half on. And I did that just as much for me as I did that for them, right? I needed to be amongst people who cared about the job, who still believed that they could make a difference, because while I didn't believe that I was going to change the world, I knew that I could make your day better. I knew that I could solve your problem. Those officers thought, yeah, listen, I'm going to save the world. Well, you and I know that they're not, but you definitely, as a senior person, you're an example, right? How does a person survive 24, 25 years of policing? What's the outlook that they need to have? And that's the biggest issue in law enforcement is you have to have these senior officers sharing their experience and teaching the younger officers how to survive the career, right? What's important and what's not important. Hey, listen, man, maybe we're going to get this guy later on. Is this the right thing to do at this moment? What does the policy of the police department say? What does what's the right thing for us to do with this young mother? Taking their son to jail? Is that going to help? Sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. But thinking through those, understanding that there's exceptions, understanding that if you get into this mindset that everyone needs to be punished and everyone's an idiot, it's going to burn you out. And senior officers can help younger officers through that transition period where they understand, we serve a critical role in society. There's things that we're not going to fix, and so we're not going to get involved in. As a 25-year guy, if someone cursed me out and told me to F off, that's the Constitution in action. Cool. If it's not my business or I'm at the end of what I can do here, I'm going to click my heels and turn around and walk off. Whereas a 3-year guy may get offended about that. And you just teach the younger officers, hey, these people don't have to like you. They don't have to respect you. And so you just work through those things. But to the senior guys, listen, man, the end is coming. Make sure that you have multiple identities, meaning that law enforcement isn't the only thing that you have. Absolutely. When I retired, I had a lot of prospects. I screen print, I embroider for fun. I can make websites. There's a lot of things that I can do. And I just occupy my time doing those things, quite honestly. So I don't need to be in a patrol car doing 80 chasing people. I'm good. I've got other identities. And waking up every day, knowing there's a check coming, knowing that you can do whatever you need to do is a good thing.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that because we covered that. That's one of the hot topics on here is life after retirement. And everyone says the same thing is not identifying yourself as just a law enforcement officer, especially when you're going out the door, have other hobbies, other things that you like to do, just because once you finally do hang it up and you, like everyone says, it's fun to go fishing, it's fun to go hunting, it's fun to work on that car for the first 6 months. And then after that, it's kind of like, what's next?
Sure.
So if you already started that process on other things to do, it makes a perfect segue for another chapter in your life.
Well, one of the things is that like I have my talents, right? I can handle high stress incidents. But the other thing that I'm really, really good at, probably one of the best that I know is like sitting still and laying down. I can do that like a champ all day, every day, right? So I don't have to be in the mix of things. I don't have to be fixing cars and doing all those other things. If I get bored, man, I bought a $15,000 commercial 16 needle embroidery machine. I'll just fire that thing up, and sow some nonsense and then go, okay, cool, I'm good. Matt Butterbosch, how are you?
There he is. Yep, I'm just getting there. Matt Butterbosch right here. From Central PA, now in LEO in Delaware, Danny is so valuable for our profession. He is an educating and advocating monster. Shout out to you. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, Matt is a lieutenant in a agency in Delaware. He does what I did, right? He's in a use of force unit where they look at the incidents, they figure out what can we learn from this, how can we make the agency better, and it's a good thing because if you don't evaluate use of force on a daily basis, you may not actually have an idea of what a reasonable officer would do, being that that's the standard. But guys like Matt are able to do those things day in and day out and actually have a grasp of what a reasonable officer does, what's reasonable or normal under stress versus what's not.
Absolutely. A good explanation, good sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. We're coming right back. Sergeant Be Safe has a few words.
Oh, thank goodness you're here. I heard a loud noise and I thought someone was breaking in.
Don't worry, Jeanette. I'll take a look around. I'll make sure everything's secure. Aha, I found your problem. It's your smoke detectors. They need batteries. It's definitely not your burglar alarm.
Oh, silly me. I guess I got a little too alarmed. Thank you, officer.
I'm glad I could help, but you need to make sure you get some batteries immediately and take care of that before it becomes a bigger problem. Abby, it sounds like you're having a little bit of trouble with your car battery.
Yes, officer, it's dead. I think I need a new one.
I see the problem. Nothing's wrong with your battery. Just turns out that you're actually out of gas.
Oh no, how did I not realize that? Thank you for saving me the expense of a new battery, officer.
Well, I'm glad to find out that you're only out of gas and don't need a new battery. Looks like there's a gas station right around the corner. Let's see if they'll accommodate you so you can get on your way. Good morning, ma'am. Hey, Mario, how's it going? I'll take my usual cup of coffee.
Officer, it's on me today. Let me buy you a cup as a token of appreciation for keeping us safe.
Well, thank you, ma'am. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. I'll kindly accept your offer. You know, Captain, it's getting colder out here, and the holidays are quickly approaching us.
Yeah, it's that time of year, my friend. You know the time we start responding to weird calls.
They say it's cuffing season, baby. You ain't good enough.
True. I almost forgot, Captain Chaos. You're absolutely right. Cuffing season is now upon us. You guys be safe out there. That's coming from me, Sergeant Be Safe. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there it is. Sergeant Be Safe just having a little fun on that one. Most of them are a little bit more direct to the point, a little serious. But that one, we had to break it up a little bit. I wasn't having a little fun.
I get it, man. You get things like that where ladies having problems and her diesel engine just isn't working on her husband's truck, and it's just like, okay, how'd this happen, or what's going on here? I don't know. I just got gas. Okay, when you got gas, what kind of gas did you get? I just got regular unleaded gas. Okay, this is a diesel engine. right? Little things like that where it's just something that you do all the time, interacting with the public, where you understand. You've seen it before, right? You've seen it over and over again. Okay, do you have gas? No. Okay, that's our problem.
Yeah. It's simple but funny. Yes, I think we've all witnessed or experienced those situations in one shape or form or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Danny, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I appreciate your knowledge and insight. I appreciate you making yourself available. Through the course of conversation, I may have forgotten to ask a question, or I may have jogged your memory. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us right now? The floor is yours.
Sure. The public is watching us. They do still respect us. If you look at the Pew Research and the Gallup polls, law enforcement is a trusted profession. And quite honestly, we've gotten away from doing law enforcement. Where I was speaking with Travis Yates, who was on your show not too long ago, when you ask law enforcement officers or chiefs what their job is, oftentimes one of the top things that they talk about isn't even law enforcement. Our country is out of control, and I think a lot of people understand that. I'm working on a website called Police Basics, where the idea is to explain to the public why police do what they do, because we do not explain that almost at all. There's a reason why we do most of the things that we do. And I'll give you an example. Use of force oftentimes is written into the law. It's not written into the law because cops gratuitously used violence or force. Use of force is written into the law because, as a citizen, when I call 911 or I call a person in as being suspicious, I understand that they are going to encounter people who are violent or want to assault them. The founding fathers of this country understood that. So when they wrote the Constitution, or better yet, the Bill of Rights, they wrote in there that the government can only reasonably seize people. They understood that we were going to seize them, but it just has to be reasonable. And so use of force isn't in the law because it's in the law. It's because we are intentionally placing our fellow citizens into hazardous, dangerous, unknown circumstances. And when you explain that to people, they go, oh. When you comply with the police officer, you're giving him just a few more seconds to figure out what's going on, right? And when we explain this to people, it's not that the citizens don't want to know. It's that quite the opposite. They do want to know. They do want to know why law enforcement does what it does. And so if we as law enforcement officers are just honest with our citizens and talk about why we do what we do, what we're trained for, what we're not trained for, a lot of times people would go, okay, because as an American, I don't think we can continue on the course that we're on, right? This is not a country that I recognize as someone that's being born in the 70s. And I come from the other side of the tracks, and I'll tell you that things aren't better on any side of the tracks, right? We're at a point in our country where as a nation, we have to decide where we're at. So if I have forgotten anything, I'll definitely come back on. Put your questions here. I'll answer them as I can. And thank you for doing what you do, man. It's important.
Absolutely. Thank you. I can't wait for the website to get up. I'm gonna make sure once I'm gonna put that out there, because I think sharing that information is very beneficial and needed. Like you said, so many different times we get called out to jobs that aren't actually police related.
Sure.
We're kind of like the caveat or the catch-all, and other times we are. And then once we're there and we start investigating the incident properly, then both the caller, victim, complainant, whoever it may be, they're upset because we're asking so many questions, or they believe that we're digging too much, but we're actually doing our job efficiently and effectively. And to have that explained in detail in moments where they aren't high stress would be very beneficial for the public and for us, and to work hand in hand cohesively.
Absolutely. We get calls just before I retired. One of the officers I was working with, he gets a call of suspicious people riding in a neighborhood. So he goes out and he stops them. And when I roll up there, I go, why are we here? Right. And he's just a younger officer trying to do the right thing. He was dispatched to a call where people look suspicious, like they don't belong in the neighborhood. That's what we call America. There's got to be some type of violation of the law or that you suspect, but it's little things like that, right? And when you said that to the officer, when I said it to him, he realizes, oh, and we kick these people free, apologize, but it's little things like that with both sides understanding, I think we're in a lot better place. But we've got a lot of things to sort out, and we can only do them one by one at a time.
Yep, absolutely. Danny, thank you for coming on this platform. I guarantee you've given a ton of great information. You blessed the show. I'm looking forward to. I'm glad we had this interaction. I'm looking forward to watching you flourish. I know there's trainings coming up. Hopefully, we will be able to meet face to face. I'm sliding off my chair as we do that. Meet face to face as I am able to attend one of these trainings and glean some more exciting advice and education from you and things that you have to share. Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully you can make it out. I'll be in Baltimore December 14th and 15th. Matt Botterbush will be in Baltimore on December 13th.
Okay.
And we'll be doing some training out there each independently, but maybe one of these days I'll make it to Pennsylvania. Again, I taught in Harrisburg a couple years ago, but hopefully we'll make it back. But in the meantime, you know where to find me. I'll be here.
All right, absolutely. We'll get you back on the show eventually and do highlights and get more updates and things like that in the works. Absolutely.
Thanks, Lee.
Yep, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Black and Blue. This is Black and Blue, where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we go live with the first responder or a law enforcement officer, whether they're rookie, seasoned, or retiree. And when we go live with them, we discuss their trainings, experiences, and publications, and we don't fall short with that. If you have your questions, make sure you guys get those ready. If you have any kind of, if you're law enforcement, if you're a rookie and you're trying to see what the seasoned guys are doing, this is your platform. If you're already retired and you still want to keep your nose to the street, to keep grinding it out, keep seeing what's going on here, this is your platform as well. We'd like to humanize the badge. We like to bring these experiences, these trainings to you. If you have your questions, make sure you tune in to Black and Blue. I'm Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. We got a special guest coming to the platform, or a special show coming to the platform next week. So make sure you guys tune in. All right. I'm Coach Clee. Make sure. I'm sorry. I already said that. Doubles talking. 10-4 over and out. Thank you guys for tuning in. We love you. Peace.
Sergeant Be Safe says, this Thanksgiving, if you decide to have a drink, you can catch a ride or you can catch this ride. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way. Make sure you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.